Hey everybody, Josh Zeman here from Sinister, and hello, we've got Joe Giacalone. Joe, how you doing?
Good, Josh. How are you?
Not bad, thank you very much. Thank you for joining, as always. Um, well, some very interesting news coming out of Long Island. What do we think? Now, this is the case of three girls, right? I mean, we're talking about three girls, really, here in Long Island. Wait a second, this fucking thing failed. Hold on. Hey everybody, Josh Zeman here from Sinister. How are you? And today we have our good friend Joe Giacalone. Joe, how you doing?
Good, Josh. How are you?
Not bad, thank you very much. So today we're going to talk about these very interesting cold cases that are coming up in Long Island. You had mentioned, Joe, of course, that there would be some breaking news out of Long Island, and there is. And in fact, I think it's actually bigger than a lot of people really understand. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yes. Well, first of all, I did predict something was going to happen, but it wasn't this. So we'll clear the air on that one. But still, but I did say it was going to come out of Nassau County. If you remember, I did say
Yes,
something was going
yes,
to come out
yes.
of
You were
Nassau
right
County.
about that. You were right about that.
But not realizing that this was going to be a case from 1984 in that case of Theresa Fusco. So we're going to get into that. Plus, maybe companion cases. I mean, let's put it this way, Josh. If I was a cold case investigator and I was in Nassau County right now, I think I would be really excited about the possibilities of expanding these cases even further.
I mean, look, let's just get straight to it. Do we have another serial killer?
We might. I mean, when you look at it, we're gonna pull them up for you today during the conversation. But when you look at the locations, you look at the girls who all know one another.
I
We
know.
have we have a single location, this hot skates where everybody hung out. And I mean, if you look at it, I mean, basically you could draw a straight line, and all three girls are on that straight line. And the suspect that was now been arrested for Teresa Fusco, this guy Richard Bilodeau, is in direct contact with, we know, at least Teresa, and who knows what else. But I think, could you imagine if this turns out to be another serial killer case on
I
the lam?
mean that, and it's crazy, dude. I was literally working on Peaches last night, and it was just like, what's going on? And it's very interesting, by the way, that number one, they resubmitted the data, the DNA in 2023, right when they must be getting information, right? So they must be talking with Suffolk County DA about using Othram, about the fact that they're going to go after Rex and make this arrest. So it's real. The timing is kind of interesting as well, right?
Yeah, no, the timing is definitely interesting, but also too all this DNA that's flying around now. And if you notice, as soon as the judge allowed all this stuff to come in, now all of a sudden the floodgates are opening. I think that was the exact quote I used on your show. I said, "This is going, the floodgates are going to open up," and here we are.
I mean, now I was just looking at the Othram site. Now, this is the 16th case that Othram has worked on and basically gotten us solved. But it's very interesting that this is coming on the heels of they submitted in 2023, which is coming on the heels of Rex Huerman. So obviously, they must have been taking a cue, from Tierney's office and kind of like, okay, well, let's start looking at ours.
Right. I mean, and if you also couple in that, unnamed source that did the New York Post article about the bathhouse three in Jones Beach,
Yeah.
so and now you have this Fusco case breaking in Nassau County. Like I said, I don't believe in coincidences, but you know what? We also have spoken about the last couple of times when Nassau came out with the Tanya Jackson, AKA Peaches, identification, and didn't have Suffolk County present there, right? So they've distanced themselves from these Nassau County cases, but that doesn't mean they're not working in hand in collaborating on these things.
I would think they got to be at this point, right?
Oh, of course, yes. I mean, I just think right now the district attorney, between the seven homicides that he's dealing with, and now this Bitroff noise that we spoke about already, and now you said, now you're still talking about these other two Nassau County cases that I think are heating up, the Karen Vagata case and Peaches and Tatiana, her daughter. I think
Yeah.
these cases are heating up, and that's what I was referring to when I made that prediction on our last show.
So let's talk about. I mean, yes, we could talk about Teresa Fusco, but I think we should kind of group them all together. Although I do have some questions, but just kind of going back. Teresa Fusco, 16 years old, disappears November 10th, 1984. She goes to East Rockaway High School. She goes. She works at Hot Skates, and Hot Skates is really important. She was last seen, she had apparently gotten fired from the concession stand at Hot Skates. She apparently called somebody and then was walking home from Hot Skates. She was upset and then she disappears. No one knows what happened. What happens to her 25 to 27 days later? They find her body within a mile of Hot Skates. Interestingly enough, nude. She'd been sexually assaulted, covered by leaves and a wooden pallet. I mean,
Yeah, she was strangled too.
yeah, and strangled. So obviously, the being covered by the leaves and the pallet means something, right? In terms of
Yeah,
offender, you know.
yeah, he was trying to hide her. And I think, like what you said before, just to take a quick step back, I think at this point you need to talk about all three girls as one case, and
Absolutely.
I think that the Nassau County Police Department, and just from the police side of this is what we would have done. The other two cases, the similarities are just there's too stark to pass up that all three of these cases are connected somehow, including the fact that all three girls knew each other and they all lived and, like I said, lined up around this area. So it's important to look at that as a similarity.
Well, we knew Teresa and Kelly knew each other. Kelly Morrison being the second girl, 15 years old. She disappears a few months prior, June 12th, 1984.
Right.
But what about Jacqueline
Mortarella.
Martorella?
Mortarella. Yeah.
Martorella. We don't know necessarily that she knew the other two girls.
I think they actually have said that. I remember reading it somewhere that she has a connection to the hot skates as well, and that she and actually Jacqueline and Kelly Morrissey were actually friends.
Right. Now, what's
So
interesting is that I knew about this case so long ago because when I was going into Maury Terry's archives, Nassau County Police, remember this is 1984, Nassau County Police is trying to figure out like what's connected with everything. And so they asked Maury Terry to come in and he starts doing his satanic panic thing because uh, Jacqueline had been found on a golf course, right? Woodmere Golf
sure.
Course. And there is like a cave or some kind of like underground thing that's found where she is. He goes down in the cave and there's all these satanic writings on the wall. So they start to think that it's some kind of satanic connection in Long Island. Right around the same time, you had Ricky Casso. So I think that that's where they were all headed. But all these police departments kind of did at that time. But and that's not obviously the only mistake of the Nassau. Oof, man, that detective, not good.
Yeah. I mean, well, the fact that they ended up arresting three people that spent 17 years in prison for a crime that they didn't do, and if it wasn't for DNA and actually the Innocence Project, who knows what would have happened.
I,
But that's the one that broke the Fusco case, though, because yeah, I don't know if we're jumping ahead too much, but the defense for these three guys, when they got all of the case files, this is when they found the vaginal swab that wasn't even tested, that nobody even knew about.
I right? How, let me ask you a question. As a layman, how does this happen? Like in terms of chain of custody and all this stuff with regards to uh,
I, I don't know how it happens, because in the way you look at it, as it's, I don't know if they said this in the when these guys were exonerated, but I mean it's a Brady violation. You had evidence that could have been tested and excluded people as part of the perpetrator, and you didn't test it. I mean, geez, that's bad news. I mean, 17 years these guys spent in prison for something that they didn't do. I always tell my students when we talk about this stuff, could you imagine being in that kind of hell for something you didn't do? Every day dealing with that. I couldn't imagine. I mean, no amount of money could change that. I mean, they got a lot of money. in the
Sure, they got like
lawsuits.
$1
But
million for every year they had been in jail.
right, right. But still, I don't think you can. I don't think you can buy that back.
And the worst part was DNA had theoretically exonerated them earlier, but they like there was still the judge was like, I don't know, and then they needed the final, what you said, the swab that they found.
Yeah, with the Innocence Project. I mean, this is like this should never happen, right? In so many aspects, and it kind of then throws in a lot because we've heard the stories from NASA and stuff like about the was it 90 something percenters and all these confession
97%,
squads. Yeah,
97% conviction rate.
all these confession squads. So this guy John Kogut, John Restivo, and Dennis Holstead. Those are the three guys that were arrested by that. But John Kogut knew like two of these girls.
Well,
So
Kelly went out with two of them.
right. So I mean, all that, and that's what led them to these guys too, in that respect.
Yeah,
I
okay,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
I think he was like 20. I think I read, and she was 15.
Oh, I think he's
So
older than that. He's like 29. I mean, it is a little bit weird. Like he's 29. He's like was married and then
but I think that's how the police led to them in the begin with, and as the potential suspects in this thing.
29 years old, married, and what's he doing hanging out with a 15-year old, 16-year old, 19-year old? That's tough. There's a great article, by the way, in the New Yorker about John Restrepo getting kind of picked up. What's interesting is his father was a detective in Suffolk County, in Nassau County. So,
Yeah, no, I mean, what an absolute talk about miscarriages of justice, boy. Jeez.
well, uh, it sounds like they planted evidence
With these hairs,
with the hair.
right? The hairs that they found in the car, right? I mean, which in police parlance it's called flaking. When you come flaking is how they refer to it, as where you plant evidence.
Right.
And
Flaking.
flaking, yeah, just like the flaking off your, like if you had
Uh,
dandruff, the flakes, flaking.
Interesting. Flaking. Huh.
Yes, that would be the term used in policing to plant evidence on somebody.
But it does not sound good. So, but let's get back to Theresa Fusco. So, she is beaten, strangled, covered with leaves in a pallet. Apparently, and did you read this whole thing about the Oldsmobile and John French and the Oldsmobile? What was that about?
That part I'm not familiar with, so you tell me about
Yeah,
that.
basically, there's some guy John French calls. He has his Oldsmobile stolen that night, not too far away, tan Oldsmobile, and they basically find it 2 weeks later, windows smashed, plates removed. So, and he thought it was connected to the missing girl because it got stolen on the same night, less than a mile away. So, I actually probably think at the end of the day that Oldsmobile was used for something else, and it wasn't used to commit the crime. However, what's important is that, again, this detective Volpe, he asks John whether or not there's a rope in the car that's missing, and there's like a little brown satchel, whether that he had found them at the crime scene, and then showed them to John, and John said, "Yeah, that's mine." And it just seems more and more planting of evidence, and it's just not good. Not good at all.
And I guess the Innocence Project, also talked about the, basically coerced confessions, whatever. So because Kogut, he he gets screwed a couple of times here. I mean, even when those guys got exonerated, they were retrying him. So I mean, because he gave up this confession and he said, "Yeah, this is what he did."
Videotape confession. I'd love to see that videotape
I
confession.
would like to see it too.
Yeah,
I would like to see it
24
too.
hours. They have him for 24 hours, not allowed to call anybody. I mean,
Well, that would be a violation
I
all in
know.
itself. I mean, I think when I was reading in the report before we got on, I think they talked to him for like 12 hours straight, which
Oh,
is like I don't even yeah, I mean, you have to give people ample rest. You have to give you want the detectives fresh too. But even bathroom breaks and food, and if you don't, I mean, this kind of leads to, a confession getting thrown out. So
yeah. Well, but
here
that's
we
my
are.
question. Back in 1984, were they just not afraid of that?
Probably. I mean, remember, this was like they were operating under a different set of rules when you start looking into some of these things. And we hear the stories now that are coming out, 30 years later, 40 years later in some cases, and you just kind of say to yourself, wow, you know.
I mean, that's the whole thing with all this DNA. I do wonder whether or not some police departments are just like, oh shit, all the skeletons are going to come falling out of the closet.
Well, I mean, if I guess for people who never thought that this was a possibility that local police departments were doing this kind of stuff, I mean, like here we are now talking about it, and we've known about this flaking incidents, I think, since 2003 when they got exonerated, if I remember
Yeah, yeah,
correctly.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, so I mean, and listen, some of the dates that we talk about tonight, whatever, I might be off a little bit here or there. So just so many different working parts to this. It's difficult to, unless I read it off a script, which we don't want to
Sure.
do.
Right.
But I think it was 2003 they get exonerated. So
Yeah.
you're looking at 22 years ago in regards to some of this stuff. And remember, I mean, these guys were talking about hair follicles in 1984. I mean, this was not even done.
I know. I was reading
It
that and
wasn't even done.
I was just wondering about all that stuff. All right. So we have Theresa Fusco, and that's the case, obviously, that DNA has linked this individual. How do you pronounce his last name?
Billadou. That's how I
Billadou.
say it. Billadou, right? Because it ends in a DEAU, like almost like a French word, I
French.
guess.
Yeah. Billadou. Okay. And then we have Kelly Morrison, right? We mentioned before, she's 15 years old. She vanishes a few months prior, June 12th, 1984. She's
Correct.
last seen on her way to the Captain Video Arcade. Also, interestingly enough, walking down Merrick Boulevard, right? Now
Merrick
she's
Road, yeah, Merrick Road,
Merrick
because
Road.
Merrick Boulevard's a whole other.
Sorry.
There is a Merrick Boulevard, but not this one.
Right. So she's walking down Merrick Road. And, if you go on Reddit and you read, there's a back and forth with regards to Gail and her best friend and whether or not they had split up or whether or not Gail jumped in a car and Kelly didn't want to go. There's actually a really good article if people want to look at on Long Island Press back when her case was reopened back in 2012, I think it was. But it was a very interesting case. Now, there's actually, they discussed this Detective Quinn, who's from, I guess it's not homicide, but what happens when there's a kid who's murdered? It's more like a juvenile homicide department.
Well, they might have a child exploitation squad back then, going on.
He didn't want the case to get kicked up to homicide because he was so into it. And they were all talking about how this cop was great. Like this Quinn, every unsolved murder should have a Quinn because he was so into trying to solve this case, and it's a shame. But what's interesting about Kelly Morrison is that, well, not only that she was very good friends with Theresa Fusco, she dates two of the guys, Halstead and the other guy, John, what is it?
Colgate. John Colgate.
Yeah, she's dated two of them, which is all listed in her diary. But her body's never found.
Right. We never find her. She was last seen at the Shell station on the corner of Earl and Merrick Road. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because if you look at where the Hot Skates is, that's located at 14 Merrick Road.
Right.
You're going to try to pull that up and see if we can get a screen share so we can show everybody. So as you're doing that, I'll talk the audience through what's going on here.
Okay.
You can almost draw a triangle between where the suspect lived in the Fusco case, the Hot Skates, and this Earl Avenue. Now, Earl Avenue and Merrick Road is actually even closer to the suspect's house than Hot Skates is. And that's even, I mean, we're talking a half a mile. I mean, you can walk to the house from here. So there it is. So that's Merrick Road, 14 Merrick Road. The top right where that yellow is right there, that's where the Hot Skates is, or was. It's no longer Hot Skates.
Right. Somewhere right. Oh, very interesting. Right. So that's that building there. And then right.
The next point would be right down the block of Earl Avenue and Merrick Road.
Earl Avenue and Merrick.
Keep on going another 2 or 3 blocks the other way.
Oh yeah, there Earl and Merrick. Yeah.
So if you just zoom out a little bit, because the suspect's house is right there in the red. See how close it is? So there's a triangle that you could draw right there. Now,
oh shit.
In policing, you would say, like, the similarities in the just based on the location of this and the fact that there is a tie-in with hot skates, you would consider this a pattern case, right?
Yeah.
I'm not using the word serial because
Right.
we don't have all the evidence, right? So we would use pattern case in that respect. And then the third girl that we would mention before, Jacqueline Mortarella,
Yep.
she worked at the Burger King
Burger
in
King.
Oceanside,
Hold on. What's the
which is
address of the
only
Burger King?
the Burger King address is
Oh, I have.
um,
Uh,
3190 Long Beach Road in Oceanside.
right down here.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Boom, boom, boom.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're all, I mean, I think, like I said, I would be salivating at this prospect in regards to maybe closing two additional cases. Now, the Kelly Morrissey case, we don't have a body, but the thing about the Jacqueline Mortarella case is that she's found in 12 feet of grass. The suspect, whoever killed her, tried to hide her body too, just like he tried to hide, just like this guy Bilodeau hid Theresa Fusco, which would be another part of a similarity that you would have to include in your
Right.
case file.
Was that the Woodmere Golf Course?
The Woodmere Golf Course, right, which is a little further away. So she's last seen walking to her Burger King job, which is that red dot right there.
Oh, that's right over here. Woodmere Golf Course.
Right. But yeah,
But
remember, she disappeared from the Burger King, which that would be a much shorter distance.
yeah, 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 yeah. And interesting. But the other thing is, I want to
Now,
look.
she was strangled. Jacqueline Mortarella, when she was found in the Woodmere Golf Club, Country Club, excuse me, she was also strangled, and she had a ligature strangle. So that means some other device was used, whether it was a rope, a belt, or what have you.
5 miles. 5 miles
Yeah, I
down.
remember in the '80s, this was much because these are all disappearing at night too.
Yeah, yeah,
These are like 9:30, 10 p.m. kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Because they were all done. There, it was all happening at night.
right, and the lighting back then was zero. I mean, you had street lights maybe.
Yeah,
On Merrick Road, you had a lot of lights, but and listen, remember, there's no surveillance video,
yep.
there's no cell phone data, there's nothing. So unless there's DNA in
Hmm.
regards to this Martorella case, the Jacqueline Martorella case, which could be because she is also sexually assaulted,
Yeah.
so
Well,
there might be.
the question is, I would have thought that there would have been some indication in the reporting that it would have mentioned her name if they were looking at her with relation to him.
Well, there is, and I think it was one of the. Remember, I tell people, Josh and I, we've talked about this a lot. When you're watching the pressers, you have to pay attention to what they're doing. So, our friend Laura Engel from News Nation had on Ann Donnelly,
Yeah,
who is the Nassau County District Attorney who's prosecuting the case of Theresa Fusco against this Richard Bilodeau guy.
yeah.
And at the presser, she mentions both of the girls' names of Kelly Morrissey and Jacqueline Mortarella that we're
Oh,
looking into these things.
uh,
So
yep.
and I think it for some people caught it. I know some people caught it, but I think for the average watcher of this kind of stuff, I think it was missed. Now,
Hmm.
I've been sitting on this kind of stuff for a while now since this case broke. I mean, like I said, like you, I knew about this case,
Yep.
meaning the Fusco case, and I guess Long Island serial killer kind of took over for a lot, and you kind of put these things on the side because you just can't look at these things. But I've been sitting on this kind of talk or since the case broke because as soon as the case broke, you start pulling out all the cases. They referred to these cases back in the day as the Lynbrook Triangle.
Yeah. The Lynbrook Triangle.
Yeah,
Right.
like the Bermuda Triangle. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Lynbrook Triangle.
Yeah.
And you had, of course, Kelly,
Yep.
Teresa, and
Yep.
Jacqueline, and there was a case, and I guarantee you there are other cases, the companion cases that they would want to look at, maybe even further out from this kind of thing, because one thing we do know about pattern offenders is that they kind of operate sometimes close to home and then they kind of go out the further they do, right? That's why it was always important that when we were looking at cases, we would, that what we call a pattern case, we would try to figure out where the first incident happened because that's usually the closest to the suspect's home.
Right. Right. The first is
And
right. The first is
right,
where you find the mistakes, right?
Right, and the first is where you're going to most likely make mistakes, and then they learn from these things and go through that. So
Right.
I think it's an important aspect to look at a case like this and say, was this the first time, for this Richard Billadu guy? Was Theresa Fusco? Right now we have a suspect in her case, so now we have somebody to look at, and this is where investigators will really earn their keep, so to speak. And I think from this, I would imagine that some of the task force men and women that are in on the list task force are actually looking at these cases too and helping out.
Well,
You have all these people. You just don't, you're gonna put this to work into it.
well, by the way, it was interesting. If you up in the top corner, I didn't. Did you notice how close it was to where they found peaches?
Yep,
Found peach. They
that
found
was
peaches
yeah.
right here, right there. Either right here or right here. It was at the bottom end of.
It's actually up a little further, up to the top left. So in between the two lakes.
In between the two lakes, right?
Yes, yes. Right where your thing is, right where your mouse is, in that area there, in that wooded area there. See the path? That path there, she was found just
Oh,
beyond
then
that
it's
path.
right here. Then she's found because I
Yeah,
remember.
approximately.
I think it's actually like right
It's
here.
before. That's where they were fishing, and they came
Uh-huh.
running over to find. When they went for the walk on the
Oh,
path.
so
That's
then
when they
it's right
found the body.
there, right?
Yeah, not too far from there.
Because this is the whole thing. If he wanted to hide the body for Peaches, he could have put her in the water, but he didn't. He put her in a cooler right on next to the fishing derby.
Yeah, that still won't answer the baby question, right? In a lot of aspects, I don't think that case is going to be even looked at with these cases,
No, no,
because
not
I
at all.
think, yeah,
Sorry,
because like I said, yeah.
I was just going
No,
back.
you're putting it into perspective for the audience too, so they understand where we're talking about. Because if you don't
Yeah,
live on Long Island, I mean, look how close everything is
I know.
here.
That's what I'm saying. It's nuts. It's nuts. But obviously, I know there's been a lot of people saying, "Hey, no, it's not Rex."
And
It
yeah,
doesn't.
I remember. Yeah, Peaches was 10 years after this too.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Well, 1984 was a weird time in Long Island. Again, a lot of satanic panic, a lot of.
I grew up in this place. Yeah, I mean, I grew up not too far from all
Where'd you grow
this
up?
crazy on the mean streets of Levittown.
Which one? Satellite Drive, Juniper Lane?
No, I grew up in Plain Edge, but we didn't have a post office, so we had to use a Levittown post office.
Wow.
So Plain Edge, and I was Plain Edge, and I was part of the Island Trees School District. So everything was all screwy where we lived. But
Maybe
I
I can
remember,
show
listen,
people where you lived in Levittown. Where is it again? It's not
Levittown be all the way to the right.
down here, right? Somewhere around here.
Yeah, it's not too far.
By the
I
way,
can't
this
see.
is this is Massapequa. By the way,
Okay, so Levittown is before that, up to the left. If that's Massapequa,
yeah,
I can't see.
Levittown, right
There's
here.
East Meadow.
There
Yeah,
you go.
the
Boom.
mean streets.
The mean streets of right.
Yeah.
Wow. You're not too far. You grew up not too far from Massapequa.
No, and the reason why I remember these cases from when I was a kid, I was a huge newspaper reader.
Oh, so was I.
Huge. I still love reading newspapers,
So
and
was I.
and I got it from my grandfather, because he always had a newspaper. When I used to go to his house, he used to send me to the candy store on the corner, and I used to buy him the newspapers. He used to buy the Post and the Daily News, and he would sit and read them all day. And I guess that's where I kind of got it from. And my mother enjoyed reading the newspaper too. But anyway, I love newspapers, and I would read the newspaper every. My mother would get the newspaper just for me,
Wow.
and I was always read. And I remember reading about these girls because I was around the same age as these girls at the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think Teresa is. I think she's a year older than me. I think she'd be like 57 or 58 right now if she was
Mm-hmm.
alive.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so she's about a year or so older than me.
Right.
So this was kind of like, say, wow, this is happening to somebody my age. So I was always into those kind of things.
So so getting back to these crimes. So it's it I do wonder whether or not we're gonna get some DNA for Martorella soon, right? She would be the next one. But the question is, where is Kelly?
Right.
That's the real
Well, I
question.
mean, we take a look at, remember, so if you look at the dates, let's just remind everybody the dates. So June
November.
12th,
Yeah.
June 12th, 84 was Kelly Morrissey. She goes missing. Her body's gone.
Right.
November 10th, 84, Theresa Fusco, and she's found about a month later.
Yep.
And then on March 26th, 1985, is Jacqueline Martorella.
Right. And by the way, and further away, because going over it back to going over back to I think this is it.
So here's the thing, though. So we're talking about the first case of Kelly Morrissey where her body just disappears. Talk about not like a first time event kind of thing, right? So it kind of throws off. I know a lot of people get excited, like all these cases could be together. Let's play devil's advocate. Kelly Morrissey's body's never found, and she's the first one that goes missing. Right? We find Teresa about 5 months later, and her body is found buried under a pallet and leads, right? Nothing, not a great mastermind kind of thing
Right,
about
right.
hiding bodies.
And by the way, right over here by the train tracks.
Right, very close to where she was
Yep.
abducted from, or
Yep.
found.
Yep.
So that kind of thing would indicate an amateur, right? Where somebody is abducted right where they are, they're found close by, and now we find out that the suspect lives close by, right? We're talking amateur kind of stuff here.
Yep.
So I really question the Kelly Morrissey case, and from a former investigator's point of view, I still would include her in a potential pattern, but I'd have to look at this and saying, we haven't found her body. I mean, that's not a sign of somebody who is an amateur.
Unless you just right, because the other two are basically tragically raped and brutalized and kind of not really covered up very well. They're kind of just thrown into pallets and things like that, right?
Yeah, and Montorella was actually left in the open. It's just that she was in 12 foot of grass.
Right. But interestingly enough, you gotta love it when they bring psychics in.
Oh boy.
Yep, they brought a psychic in, and the psychic, first of all, went to Kelly's house and was like, "This house is weird. Something's up with the house." And they felt that she was kind of a free range. She was 15, but smoking weed and drinking and hanging out with 29-year-old guys, and like.
Well, I mean, Long Island, we had a lot of that stuff going on in those teenage years. I mean, you got to remember, Generation X, there was no supervision. There was nothing going on. I mean, people were out. I mean, we're talking about 15-year-olds out at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
Which I think some people would find. They used to have to put a thing on the TV. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are on, for
of
crying out
course.
loud? So that the parents who were watching TV would say, "Hey, where are the kids?"
But the one thing I want to bring up is Rockville Cemetery,
Okay.
because that's where the psychic pointed to, and that's where the
A cemetery?
well,
Congratulations.
interestingly enough, that's where the police alleged that the three guys
Teresa?
first had brought Teresa, right? So it's kind of worth noting. It's kind of worth noting that. So that cemetery, I don't know. Weirdly, cemeteries are easy places to hide bodies.
Well, people still tend to stay away from the cemeteries at night specifically because, like my grandmother used to say, it's not the dead ones you got to worry about, it's the ones walking around.
Yeah,
Um, but I guess in certain aspects, I guess if you were going to do something and be left alone, so to speak, people would kind of not want to go look into the cemetery if they heard anything. But
yeah,
the issue that comes down to is like, does so like we have a suspect, we have a Teresa Fusco thing. So this is the only thing we can kind of talk about in regards to like this we know for a fact.
yep,
Everything else is just pure speculation. So we know he's older. He has a car, right? Does he pick her up in the car? Is it a blitz style attack? I mean, all these different kinds of questions that we hope to see if we can get answers are. And you know what? Maybe he confesses to something too. We don't know exactly what transpires down the road. But you hope that DNA exists on the Mortarella case because we know that she was assaulted, and that might open the door to something else. So it's hope is not a plan, but
Yeah,
there's a lot of working parts here. You actually have somebody,
you're right.
right? I mean, one thing they don't tell us, and Josh, maybe you heard it. Like, how did they focus in on this Billadou guy in the first place?
Well,
Did they do a genetic
yeah,
genealogy? And
they did
yeah,
genetic genealogy. They went, Othram got it, and then they hired a forensic genealogist, and then and then
right. So they had a family member, so that's why they followed him around for a long time to get the
yeah.
smoothie cup. Yeah, the news unfortunately left that fact out from those
However,
stories.
however, there is also some weird coverage about a statement he made saying a lot of people were murdered back then. I can't tell
Yes.
if that statement was now or if he had ever been interviewed back then.
Yeah, I read that too, and like I said, there's a couple of things. They left out that key fact about the forensic genealogy and all the other stuff from the stories.
Othram put
But
out a press release pretty quickly.
yes, but Othram's been awesome. I mean, jeez, you can't say anything bad about them. I actually had David Mattelman on my show.
Oh,
He
did
actually
you?
helped me out. He helped me out with my cold case handbook before it was even published. He did an interview with me, and actually it's included in the book. And he, he helped me put me on. This was before Othram became huge too.
Hmm.
So they were doing things back then. So yeah, these guys have been awesome.
My only other fearful question is we know that Volpe, the previous detective, messed around with the evidence so much. Did he mess around with evidence that could point to this guy?
Well, that's the chance that's unfortunate in a lot of respects, right? How much of destruction was actually done or tampered with that you won't be able to do this. But one thing we do know about Optimum is that no matter how degraded or how old some of these DNA samples are, they could still pull a rabbit out of the hat.
Yep.
So, we're hoping that's the case. And listen, you have to give credit where credit was due with Nassau, in order to preserving this evidence. Listen, we could beat them. We could beat these guys up all day long about, their 97% conviction rate, in Nassau and Suffolk. But you know what though? Both times, I mean, you look at some of these cases like Sandra Castilla or Jessica Taylor, or this, they secured this vital evidence and they did so properly. So, like I said, we could beat them up, but you also have to turn around and say, "Wow, somebody in the crime scene unit did an unbelievable job in order securing this evidence that made it usable, 30, 40 years later."
Can I just quickly go and ask a question because I'm in the middle of looking at Peaches for the podcast. So Peaches' skull found on Ocean Parkway. They DNA links her obviously to the toddler, and then DNA links her to Peaches. But she was Jane Doe number 3 at the time was found. Sorry, Tanya was found in uh, Nassau County,
Correct.
and Peaches was also found in Nassau County. The torso was also found in Nassau County. We had to go to the medical examiner's office for them to eventually reveal, because they had to, because of the new law that Cuomo had signed at that time.
Natus.
Yeah, that you have to reveal. Do you think that, and I'm sure, like we had spoken to Dormer at the time, and he hadn't mentioned having an ID, and I don't think he obviously would mention it, but I'm just trying to understand what the relationship at that time, which was obviously not good, between Nassau County and Suffolk County, and whether or not Suffolk County would have wanted Nassau County not to reveal that information.
Well, even I remember stories back in the day how Nassau and Suffolk were fighting over different things, especially over petty things like one of their cops got a summons,
Yeah,
and they would and have these like traffic wars and all these different things going on. So I mean, it was kind of like juvenile. Some of the stories that you heard, I don't know, I didn't work there, but just from what anecdotally, what I would hear as a kid
right.
growing up under these things. So I mean, those little tit for tats could lead to much bigger problems down the road in regards to certain situations, including working together jurisdictionally in between two different counties, so to speak, in regards to this.
But my question is, what in a serial killer case like that,
Mhm.
why would the police would not want to make it public that Jane Doe number 3 was connected by DNA to Peaches. They would not want to make that public, or would they? Or you don't know why they would.
The only reason why I don't think they would want to is because people would be throwing around the serial killer thing around all the time. I could just tell you from a story, a personal story, when I was in the Bronx in the cold case squad. Yonkers had cases of prostitutes who were murdered, left in a specific way, and they had reached out to us and say, "Hey, do you have any cases?" Because we boarded them. I think we found, I think, 3 to 4 cases, if I remember correctly, that end up tying into their serial killer that they end up arresting in Yonkers.
Right.
So from our standpoint, we were getting 3 or 4 cases off our docket, so to speak. So we were into that. I said, "Yeah, sure, here you go. Have them. Absolutely, go ahead, knock yourself out." But some jurisdictions don't play that way.
Mm-hmm. So it would not have been, because I was just trying to think why they would have kept that.
It could just be like an ego thing where they say we want to solve it and we want to, take, on our own.
Well, what I was
You
trying
got
to say
half,
is,
you got half and half. I mean, for crying out loud, you got to work together.
I mean, come on. Nassau would have wanted to tell Suffolk that they made this connection, that they knew this, wouldn't they?
You would hope so, but I mean, we know that it was even a problem getting it into NamUs, right? I mean, that was the whole kit and caboodle. That it wasn't even included in that; it was hidden, and then they were basically forced to put it in.
So you
So
think Nassau might not have told Suffolk County that Jane Doe number 3, Tanya Denise Jackson, was connected to Peaches?
I'm hoping that it's just because that the information wasn't put into the system to make that connection. That's what I'm hoping for.
Uh,
Not that somebody would actually do this, because I have no information or evidence to
well,
say otherwise, other than that you weren't mandated until that Cuomo law came into effect to put in all unidentified human remains into NamUs so that you can make a connection.
I mean, I was thinking, like, did Burke have anything to do with it? Because he didn't want, like, once there's other reasons to pull in another county, then that's all the more reason that other agencies are going to start circling. And he's so crazy territorial.
It's definitely a working theory, right? I always say Jimmy Burke, the gift that keeps on giving.
Wow.
Anytime that guy's name is mentioned and then something crazy you talk about like this, the answer is maybe. I mean, we know that this guy had he had more skeletons in his closet than John Wayne Gacy had under his house. I mean, it's absolutely insane what
All right.
this guy was up to.
So, are you hearing anything more out of Suffolk County? I mean,
Honestly,
out of Nassau County.
I still hear the rumblings that something is, they're working really hard. Nassau is really working hard on these cases, including Tanya and Karen Vagata. But you got to remember too, Tanya Rush is a Nassau County case. There are a lot of cases that could be potential Lisk involvement if they make a connection somehow through DNA. That's the only way you're going to get this done, because I don't think Rex is ever going to confess to any of these things. But um, they'll have to wait in line until after the Suffolk County's done and then decide. I think they'll just put it like a prosecution in abeyance kind of thing. They'll still close out the cases.
Yeah.
They'll drop paperwork for the arrest, but there will not be Nassau will not hold a trial for this guy.
Yeah. So,
Especially
by the way,
if he gets convicted of 7 life sentences. Why would you even bother wasting the time and money?
yeah, I know. By the way, here's that quote from Billadou. When detectives asked him why his DNA matched a sample found with Theresa's body in the 1980s, he replied, "People got away with murder back then."
Including me.
Yeah, exactly.
You might as well say that. We might as well have added that qualifier at the end.
Jeez. It's so sad too. These parents are
If you
so.
notice, if it wasn't, I didn't do it, right? It was a
I
lot of
know.
people were killing people.
The question is what, he only worked at that Walmart for 12 years. I wonder where he worked before then.
Well, before we got on the show, I said everywhere this guy lived, because I think it was Center Moriches out in Suffolk
Yeah.
County.
Yep. Santa Mauritius.
So,
Did he troll hot skates? Because everything's like connected to hot skates. Because Kelly went to hot skates. Theresa works at hot skates. Like, you have to assume that he's hanging out in the hot skates parking lot watching young girls, right?
That would be my number one theory, that he's just hanging in the parking lot watching the girls come out and try to engage them in conversation, and maybe pick up a date, so to speak.
Yeah,
And you know what? We know that Teresa gets fired that day that she disappears. She could have been in a really bad way. She's upset. And here's this guy that she knows because she's seen him now a couple of times in the
exactly.
parking lot.
Because
So she's
she's
a little,
crying, she's upset. Yeah,
so, maybe the guard is down. And listen, if this is all turns out to be the case, I mean, this is what they prey upon, right? Somebody who is the most vulnerable at the time. This would be my working theory, that she's seen him before, and
hmm
she let her guard down.
yeah. And Kelly used to hitchhike all around. Like that was it was like there was a lot of discussions how she used to hitchhike.
Yeah, Kelly seems to be like a loose cannon. I think that would
Yeah,
be a good way to. I mean, she's 15 years old and she's smoking. She's at the Shell station, and here's how much things have changed, right? She's buying cigarettes from the Shell station at 15 years of age. Today, like, you would hear about this, people would have coronaries about that kind of stuff. But this is what it was like growing up on Long Island back in the day.
yeah. The other question that I have is he lived with his grandparents
Right, not his
in
parents.
the 80s, not his parents. I mean, so we're talking. So he's 63. So 1984 is how many years? I'm horrible at math.
16 plus 25,
Okay, so you're talking
41.
about 41, 63, 41, it's 22.
Right,
Oof.
which would put him in the same time frame as some of the girls with dating guys in their 20s.
Oh, yeah,
So, I don't find that hard to believe.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, we do know that Kelly was, with this Kogut guy, who was it? It was in his
He's
20s. I don't
29. He
remember.
was 29. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So to me, that's not a strange thing. That's what there was, that the circle that these girls were traveling in.
Oof. So, by the way, real quick, did you see that Chaim Weiss? I bring it up because it's another Nassau County cold case, and it's connected to Halloween. Interesting, and I wonder, you know, us citizens, we all like Halloween crime, Halloween crime. There's got to be something with a Halloween crime. But what did you always find out when you were looking at Halloween crimes?
Well, this is what I wanted to say. It's always good to talk about cases on their anniversary dates,
Oh, right.
because these are the kind of things where you drum up a lot of information. And in this, just to circle back just quickly to the Fusco,
Yeah,
Morrissey, and the Mortarella cases, that's how a lot of these things started, with a Facebook page group from the Hotskates
you're right.
about
You're
how
right.
they led to this stuff about the thing. So looking into this Chaim Weiss, this is, once again, this is another story I remember as a kid. This one was from November 1st, 1986, but it
6.
happened on Halloween night.
Right.
Uh, I remember this case. And when you were reading about it in the Sunday newspaper, I think it was, that you're looking at this in respect of, like, holy cow, because this happens in Long Beach,
Yeah.
which is basically like a Barrier Island kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
really
Yeah. Yeah.
cool
Yeah.
place. I mean, I
Yep.
wanted to live there. My wife and I had actually looked at condos to buy there on the water, on the ocean.
More South Shore of Long
Oh
Island.
yeah, and it's a fun place.
Yeah.
Anyway, he is in the Torah High School Yeshiva in
Yep.
Long Beach. He is one of only two students that has his own room,
Which is weird.
which is weird, right? Red flag kind of stuff.
Red flag.
He's
Yeah.
16 years old. He's 16 years old, and he is bludgeoned to death while he is sleeping on Halloween night, because they
Yep.
find him on Saturday morning, I guess, when they're doing bed checks when people aren't
Yep.
showing up.
Yep.
Now, here is where this case is a little bit different than most cases, because we have a Sabbath problem.
Isn't that that's what I was going to ask you? That is got to, for a detective, that's got to be crazy.
And it is, because there's a detective. His name is Don Daly. He's the Nassau County Police detective. He's been quoted many different locations.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really say his frustration about that, but you can actually, like, feel it.
Well, it's the
Because,
first 48, right? The first
yeah,
48.
and nobody's talking to him. Nobody's giving him anything, because they're not allowed to talk. They're not allowed to do certain things.
Yeah, but if it's a life or death situation, you are supposed to turn around and talk. But he didn't want. I don't know, man. Like,
I think there's a lot of
uncool.
pressure from the adults. Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure from the adults, because they conduct 40 polygraph exams
I know. I saw that.
with the students. And and it said some faculty, right? They didn't say all the faculty. Some people, and they didn't mention, they did, I think they said they included a couple of rabbis that were there, but not everybody. Which to me is, you could talk to him, but you can't talk to him,
Exactly.
that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Which I'm sure if we were able to get Don Daly on the show, I think he would probably blow his top, because he
Totally.
was probably, I can only imagine the conversations he had in the squad room about this.
And knowing those rabbis, I can only imagine, like, they're like, who like because these rabbis are huge leaders in their community, right? But it's like, who's this cop who wants to talk to me? Break the Sabbath? No way, not for anybody.
The descriptions of his injuries aren't clear, and what do I mean by that? Because I've read a couple of different variations, but one of the variations is that his head is basically severed from his spine.
But he's hit blunt front of the face with an axe, with a hatchet.
Right, something. Even the weapons, right? We don't. There's no weapon found at the scene. There's no talk of any blood spatter or anything like that. But some of the odd things that you find from reading, because I said, once again, I don't have the case file. I'm only going by what we're reading in the newspapers and stuff. That there was a window left open, which apparently, maybe you can help me out.
Yeah, I'm not so yes, Jewish tradition. You open up the window, the soul goes out to heaven from the window.
Right. And how about the thing with the candle?
Not true. Candle, not true. I mean, but yes, it's a yard site candle. You basically light a candle for somebody, and you do that on every day of his anniversary on every anniversary of his death. But I think what's happening is you have people trying to look at evidence, and then you've got a bunch of very religious Jews who are like, we light a candle. That's what we do. Go put the candle up there. And everybody's like, there's a
right, but there's a second candle that apparently shows up. I don't know if that's true or not.
I think it's all bullshit. I think people are conflating post mortem Jewish law with somehow that's evidence of the scene. I mean, Jews know their own laws very well. But they don't pay attention to many other people's laws. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I wouldn't know. Yeah, this isn't my area.
This is my wheelhouse. This is my wheelhouse.
So, I mean, the father put out a $15 million lawsuit. His name is Anton Weiss. He put out a $15 million lawsuit against
jeweler.
Yeah, against the county, and basically saying that it was a wrongful death because the back door was broken. I made some other notes here.
Well, combination.
There was no dorm counselor. There was no dormitory counselor working that night.
Interesting. Well, I think he was probably downstairs trying to fend off the kids with the eggs or something like that. But combination lock, combination to get in, no forced entry, one way in, one way out. Interesting. Could have gone up the fire escape, but you still had to go through other kids' rooms
to get to the fire escape.
His room. Come on.
Yeah. And I read in one report there was a janitor who quit not too long after this and moved back to Europe.
Went to Poland. After the murder. Went back to Poland. Yeah.
Poland. Yep. Yeah.
He died. So,
and let's see what else I was, just from putting this all, just doing the research on this case. This was, you got to say what you got. I would come up with the same theory, same as Detective Daly does, that your suspect is within the house. Simple as that.
Oh, absolutely.
Simple as that. And that would be the number one theory, and I think he's right on that.
You don't go wandering, plus there's it's so insular. Like, you just don't go wandering through like a Hasidic dorm. It's just not, it's not open for people. It's not inviting for criminals, even a mentally ill guy, maybe a janitor, they were saying, but when you read all the stuff about the interviews with the rabbis post, then it gets really weird. Oh, by the way, that he lived in Willowbrook, which is right across from the Willowbrook Mental Institution where the whole Cropsey thing happened. I knew that area very well.
And there was signs that the crime scene was tampered with too. That they said.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think that
like the body had been moved.
Yeah, they wouldn't pay attention to any of that stuff. They would consider traditional Jewish law far more important than preserving a crime scene. That's why I think they went up there. They lit a candle. They would be like, he's dead. What?
Right. Well, like I said, now you screw up a lot of things too in regards to that. Because
But
as soon as you start looking at it, because then you say, well, is the scene staged, right? Because you throw off the theories from the investigators where their starting points are
I
when you start
understand that.
moving
But
things
what's
around.
crazy to me is this idea that somehow they could put a stop to an NYPD or NASA or any police investigation by definition of saying, no, it's the Sabbath. You're not speaking to anybody until afterwards. Like that blew my mind.
Coming from the police department in these situations with religious institutions, they had the hotline to the captain's office or the commanding officer's office, and they would just call them up on it without even thinking and say, "Hey, this is what's going on. Don't bother us. Don't." And they would because you got to remember these commanding officers. They are in these places as of the political will, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Once you reach the rank of captain, everything is political at that point. Your
Yeah.
appointments, the locations,
Listen, the
and if
last thing you want is angry old Jewish men, knocking down your door all the time.
or calling the police commissioner saying this guy did this,
Yeah.
whatever. Next thing you know, you'll be out in God knows where. Well, Nassau County, I can't imagine where a punishment would be, but New York City, we had plenty of places to get punished. So you can see that coming a mile away, and that
Yeah.
politics is involved.
Yeah.
So
Of course. But like,
I do not find that unusual at all because I've seen it happen.
also like it's just such an insular community, like they make movies about it. It's so insular, like, you know, uh, anyway, but it does seem like just reading, there's some weird comments that one of the adult rabbis is making. So I'm thinking some kind of pedophile sexual stuff with the kid. It was weird. There's some weird stuff
Well,
going
I think that would be a theory, right? That something's going on, in regards to those. You'd have several theories about what happened. That is some other. Um, if you thought it was another one of the kids in the place where there was some sort of jealousy, something happened, maybe with some girl. Who knows, right? I mean, those are all the different
have
things that you
girls,
did.
bro. They don't have girls.
Well, outside that, outside that area, when they go to, whatever. I don't know. I don't know anything about this setup. And I think after listening to where you're going with this, I'm kind of glad. Um,
No girls. Not thinking about girls. Nose buried in a book.
yeah. So yeah, that doesn't sound like fun,
No,
but
not fun.
not fun.
Not fun. But yeah. So I don't know.
But I
But
think it's
it was
important that I think it's important that you talk about cases on anniversary dates because as these things hit the wire, or I guess now it's algorithms, right? When they hit the algorithm, somebody searches for it, because it's going to come up in the newspaper. Newsday might even do something on this. I got a call from Newsday on another
Mary
old
Murphy
case that,
did something on it. Mary Murphy was the one who went back in 2017 and did some pretty good investigative work.
yeah, Mary's awesome. She's all over everything in regards to these kind of things. But I just got a call from Newsday on another case
Which one?
that the anniversary coming up. I don't know. I did a CBS News tonight too. My head's flipping, so I don't even know what I did. A CBS News tonight too. I was on at 5, 6, and maybe 11.
Nice, nice, nice. So yeah, anything going up? Have you heard anything on Suffolk County Way?
No, everything's been quiet in that respect. I haven't really heard anybody talking about it, which kind of could be like something brewing too, right? Because it's like having kids. If they're quiet, you better go check on them
Exactly,
because they're
exactly.
they're up to no good.
Silence is
Listen,
not golden.
I hope that they close all of these cases. And I don't care if it's Rex or somebody else, but I think that the victims need to they need to have their justice wherever it is in this life or the next and be able to, and I think Suffolk can really help out their image by closing out these cases too in regard to some of the bad police work that they've done as well
Ugh,
as good police work.
dude, let me tell you something. Oof, this is like egregiously bad when you look at Volpe.
Yes.
Oof.
Yeah. And unfortunately there are other stories like him in this era back in the day. Era meaning ERA. I know sometimes my Brooklynese comes out, and you think I'm saying
The era,
I
era.
speak the Kings County English.
Yeah, fucking A, fucking B, fucking C. So yeah, wondering what's gonna happen with that, and nothing going on recently with I mean, who knows what they're doing over there in Suffolk
Well,
County?
we know Othram is working on Asian male dough. We know that
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
official.
I had spoken to Sarah Weinman. I don't know if you know her,
No, I
journalist,
don't.
but she was continuing to say, oh, very interesting, by the way, in her research about Asian male, there were 8 Asian trans communities back then. 8. And she went down and had did some really good research into those trans communities and was just saying that not a lot of street walking in the Asian trans community. A lot of in calls, out calls, a lot of one-on-ones, which I thought is very interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting considering we know that our person likes to have burner phones.
Yeah, or puts TS in their Google, transsexual in their Google. So, but then the question becomes, if he knows what he's doing in terms of hiring, engaging with Asian dough, why the beating? Why not? Why not the same? I guess because the plumbing's different. Excuse me for
Well,
not having a better phrasing of that.
whomever killed him, right? Whoever kills Asian male dope, there's an anger issue here that we haven't seen in any of the other victims per se, right? You got strangling and all the other stuff could be an anger issue, but it also could be just that's the way he's gonna kill him. I mean, this one, his head's bashed in.
Yes.
He's got some serious, severe skull injuries, and yeah,
So,
so
but you know where I was going. I was like, well,
yeah. Well,
you know,
it could be.
if he knew what he was getting into, why the anger at the end?
Well, he might have maybe paid for more than he bargained for. I mean, that could also be, a nice way of saying so. Going around the whole thing, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we want to keep it a PG rated show, but maybe whoever was responsible for his death didn't know he was a man, and then, like I said, yeah,
Yeah. But let me give you a
got
difference.
more than he bargained for.
Yeah, which was always the earlier prevailing thought. But allegedly Rex. Let's just go allegedly Rex because I'm actually allegedly on Rex's Google's. There's TS transsexual
Mhm.
and a number of Asian twink and a number of
Yep.
other searches for individuals transsexual or what have you at the time. Um,
Yeah,
so,
that's been published by that, and it was
right.
done, I think, on purpose too.
Right, of course. So, and then Sarah Wyman says, there wasn't a lot of street walking in the Asian, and obviously everybody could, there's always the outlier, but there wasn't a lot of Asian street walking. So, but there was a lot of Craigslist among the Asian trans community. So, let's say, for example, allegedly Rex knew what he was in for when he hired this individual. So, then the question becomes why the kind of gay rage, if you will, quote unquote, that against Asian dough.
I don't know. I think that's a psychological answer that we'd be looking for in that respect. But I don't know. I still stick with the theory of that he didn't know, whoever it is doesn't know, and just gets angry when he finds out.
But why would he search? Why would there be those specific searches on his Google?
We know he's following the case in the news, right? So
Yes.
it could be something tied into that too. He was also searching for Bitroff, and he's also searching for other things. So we only know this much of that list because they said they couldn't even publish the other things. I mean, and some of the things that they did publish were pretty, like,
Yeah, they were horrific.
right. So I can only imagine what that's going to be when we actually hear about it at trial time.
Ugh.
I can imagine how many searches there were too. I mean, geez, we know how many images there are, right? It was 100,000,
100,000.
uh, 100,000 images. So God only knows how many searches. And did he categorize these images? Right? Did he have these things in folders
Oh,
and I mean,
he's
did
a
he make it easy for
planner.
himself to find? Well, as I said, right? I think that he's a little bit of an OCD kind of thing with this, right? I mean, he had this plan, he had all these different things, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised. He had his Word document. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they found all kinds of files and folders in special categories for him, so he can even maybe relive some of this
Yeah.
stuff going back.
Oh, that's horrific.
And of course, the wild card and the whole thing of these storage facilities too.
I know. I keep, and then people want to know, and I think a lot of people want to know, Bitroff, how long are we going to wait to hear about what the DNA shows with Bitroff?
Well, before we got on, I went on to New York Crims, which
Oh,
is
you did
the
all your
website.
homework.
Dude, Jen has beat me with a stick, man.
No, I know.
So, yeah, I went into New York Crims, and Rex comes up, of course, for January 13th. Still, he's still on the docket with Tim Mazie on January 13th. But surprisingly, nothing in Crims for John Bitroff. So I wonder if they're waiting for test results still.
How long do you think it takes to get that done?
It shouldn't take that long against a known sample. Sorry. Unless, listen, they know they tied him to Sandra Castilla, right? The question comes down to how degraded are the Colleen, I think they come from Colleen McNamee.
Mm-hmm.
How degraded are those samples? And what kind of magic does, I'm assuming, Othram have to
Othram
do?
again, right? Yeah.
Yep, I'm assuming, right? I don't know for sure. Do you know that for sure or not? But I'm just
No,
assuming
not
it's them. Why go to a different lab if you got, if you've been
because Othram needs so much extra time, don't they?
right? So that's what I'm saying. So I don't think it's I don't think it's anything to panic about that he's not on the docket yet. But I check every couple of days because I'm telling you right now, Josh, the day Bitroff shows up in Crims, we're going live because it's coming. Either good or bad, something huge is going to happen.
What I really find interesting, by the way, is like the people like there's some of our folks are like he didn't do it, and
You mean Bitroff or Rex?
Bitroff.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of people that don't believe Bitroff is
What?
guilty at all.
But I'm like, why?
Well, I guess the only reason why I can think of is that when you're hearing about the false confessions and from the Suffolk County Police and their thing, right? Did he, you know, I don't know how intelligent this guy is. I don't know how, I don't, I've never heard him speak. I don't know if he's got the mental capacity, right? All these things are important to determine if a confession should have been admitted or not, or a spontaneous utterance, because apparently it's a spontaneous utterance, and we only got that from the police about
The
about
brother,
saying about his brother,
the
about saying
brother.
about no, about him saying to
Right,
his
right.
brother, like, you
He
know,
he
uh,
can't keep his mouth shut or whatever. What's it?
right,
Yeah, if anybody knows the
something
quote.
like that, right? So it's a spontaneous utterance, so to speak. But I think that,
But you can't believe anything they say. You can't believe anything they say.
well, it's unfortunate, but you know what? Just look at the administration.
But
Tom Spoda,
that's
yeah,
the problem. That's the problem. Every single piece of evidence that goes back to that time is suspect. Every single piece.
I cannot believe that there isn't a conga line of defense attorneys at Suffolk County when Tom Spoda went to prison. I am totally shocked that there wasn't a conga line
I wish
going.
I wish I had a case. Right?
But
I
that's my
know,
point,
right?
right? I mean, it would be like, I thought they'd be lining up,
And
you know,
they've got the money to pay for it.
at the taxpayers' expense.
There's a lot of money in that pension fund.
Well, I tell you, there's still, to me, I mean, I think everything is suspect. I mean, I'd like to think that they got the right guy because you never want to see the police make a mistake like that
Talking about
and pick
Bitroff
him
or
in.
Ewerman.
Bitroff.
Okay.
Oh no, I'm
I know.
clearly in the camp that Rex they got the right guy.
Don't throw
Yeah,
me a curveball.
yeah, no, but John Bitroff, I am really sitting on the fence. I don't, because I don't believe anything that comes out of Spoda's office. I mean, what was his the district attorney there at the time, was it Biancalava,
Yeah.
making a statement that he could be responsible for the Gilgo cases back then.
I remember
But
when
his
I
but
remember
yeah,
when
his boss Spoda talking about 3 or 4 different serial killers. When you now all of a sudden you sit back and you think about all these little pieces of things you read, things you heard, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute,
oh dude, there like
wait a minute, is
I don't
somebody
want to
trying
talk
to
about it now, but
sell me a bag of goods?
the plot, the plot to take over Suffolk County, that's
Yeah,
happening. Holy jeez.
but that's my point, right? Was somebody trying to sell us a bag of goods back then by even throwing that out there
Uh,
during that time?
everything, bro, everything.
That's
It's
why
everything. And so I'm listening. Sorry, folks, we're just going down a little rabbit hole. I'm listening to Hawkshaw, right? I interviewed Hawkshaw back in 2015. You know Hawkshaw, right?
I know who he is. I don't know him personally.
Detective, right? And I'm like, who's this crazy old man kind of telling me about all this, all these conspiracies and, like just crazy shit, right? And then I literally, we were going back in. I'm listening to his interview. Back in 2015, he's like, how could Dorma ever say it was drowning? That's ridiculous. You never say it. He's like, why are they arguing about two serial killers in public? That's ridiculous. Like every single thing this dude nailed way back when he was on Spoda. Damn.
Well, and to give us a little pat on the back, we were on Spoda too
Sure,
before all
but
this stuff came out in regards to specifically the fight between the fight between Spoda and Dormer about how many serial killers. I said this years ago that it's going to come back and haunt the case if they ever find somebody.
of
And
course.
here we are. And it's going to come up in the. Write this right down now, folks. You're going to hear James Burke brought
I
up by
know.
the
That's what I was
defense.
just going to say.
You're
Witness
going to
number
hear
one, James
right.
Burke.
You're going to hear Tom Spoda's argument about multiple serial killers brought into this case. Write it down right now because
Okay, I got a question for you. How does Brown use, not how many times does Brown use John Ray?
well, I think he's got to, right? Because there's issues that have come up with that too, especially if you bring in the Karen Vagata case or something like that. So
Everybody treats those affidavits as fact. If you're an investigator and somebody does that, how do you what do you do? How do you address it? Wouldn't you go in and be like, we don't know that this is fact, but then go in and investigate it?
yeah, well, it has to be corroborated, right? So just because somebody says something, that's what they remember at the time. That doesn't necessarily. So if they make a mistake, they're not lying, right? It's just technically they mean nothing. These affidavits,
I know,
and
but everybody treats them as gold, and so you have to like.
except for the police and the district attorneys, and not just one district attorney, several district attorneys.
I understand that, but my point is for the public who treats them as gold. How do you, as an investigator? I mean, you don't, right? You're like, we don't care. It's just what
The investigators have nothing to do with this. This lies squarely in the district attorney's office in regards to if they want to pursue these or not. But I remember when I had on Rodney Harrison at the
But
time
then
on
why
the
did
show.
Rodney Harrison then? It makes it seem like it's 100%.
Well, I mean, I think you had. I think things were moving so fast back then. Even though they were not. When you're in the midst of an investigation and things start coming into place, I mean, it seems as if even though time's standing still, it's flying by, and
Yeah,
you start now entertaining everything and every little loophole and all the other things that go along with it, just to make sure you dot your i's and cross your t's.
yeah.
And but we're gonna hear all about that stuff also. There's no question. There's no question about it.
I know. All right, Joe. Uh, again another serial killer on Long Island. By the way,
Could you
10
imagine
years.
if that comes up? Could you imagine?
Because here's the thing. I keep saying it. There were four in 1993. Bitroff, Schulman, Rifkin, Hewerman. Four operating all together. Sorry, not operating all together. Operating
At the same
simultaneously
time,
in 1993. That's nuts.
right?
Now we're gonna go back even further, and then there's another one.
We might have to put an asterisk next to Petroff's name eventually, just like they do with baseball almanac,
That's
steroid
true.
use.
That's true.
Asterisk.
But then the next question is, who's killing trans sex workers in Queens?
Well, and you can add that Brooklyn to the list too, and
That's
everything
what
else.
I kind of meant. Brooklyn,
Yeah.
Queens. Tanya Rush, Sugar Bear. If Sugar Bear is connected, I don't know. What from an
Andre Isaacs.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to you about this, and I know you did your own style investigation. Real quick, what do you think?
Well, Andre Isaacs is a good candidate to be included in this. And I think Suffolk County did too, way back when with the mysterious Gilgo page. His head is found out in way
Mauritius.
out in Suffolk County, in the Mauritius,
Yeah.
which is closer than Southampton,
Yep.
where Sandra Costello was found.
Yep. Yep.
So his head was there. His body was found in Queens,
Far
in the
Rockaway.
beach. In,
Yep. Far
yep,
Rockaway. Yep.
the beach in Queens, and he disappeared from Brooklyn, if I believe correctly.
Last seen getting into a red sports car.
Red sports car, right? Red sports car, but that doesn't mean that's where he ended up, right?
Of course, of course, of course.
Yeah, he just left in a red sports car. That doesn't mean that they didn't go
I
somewhere
go in
else
like
and
5-6 cars a night, whenever I go out.
If you go into a party, right? Something you meet somebody, this and that, you can go somewhere. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So we don't know for sure, but it would. Listen, let's put it this way: once you start bringing in now New York City into this, and you have this three-headed monster of New York City, Nassau County, and Suffolk County, boy, I would love to see it, because could you imagine the collaboration that needs to be done in order to pull off an investigation like this over
one
several counties.
Yeah, I think the one thing that was always, and I saw a couple of other posters, comments about it. I thought it was very interesting, but just the one thing that I was like, his size, he's so huge. And if you're really, Rex always seemed to be somewhat allegedly careful about his victimology in terms of control. This guy's huge. He's big.
And people would recognize them, and people would see them, but not after you saw him on television. No, that's part of the problem too, where people see something and then they say, "Holy cow, I think that's the guy." But those descriptions never showed up until after he was caught in a couple of these cases.
Just from Rex being able to control his victim.
Well, it's easy if you're 100 pounds.
That's what I'm saying. This guy was big. I mean, just from a risk standpoint alone.
I'm surprised that we didn't hear a lot of stories from sex workers that said they encountered this guy and saw him and said, "No way, absolutely not."
I smile because I don't want to tell you, but that may come up again.
I had a feeling it would.
Yeah. All right, Joe, it's been good. It's been great. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of your expertise, and looks like we have some more updates, whether it's Bitroff, whether it's
Billadu
or
Heuermann. I mean, we have the three-headed monster we're going to be looking at here.
What do you want to discuss next time? Have we gone through that yet? Should we wait?
Yeah, I think we're going to wait, because I want to see what transpires with these Nassau cases. I still think Nassau comes out with news first over Suffolk in any of these cases. Yeah.
All right, Joe, thanks very much. Great talking to you as always.
Yep.
Thanks everybody for watching. Much appreciated. And hit the like, hit the subscribe, and check out our Patreon. Thanks everybody.